and I want to welcome you to Stringing Words Together. And it's a poetry reading and a musical performance combined. And we want to thank you, Heather, so much, and our New Britain Museum of Art for giving us this incredible opportunity to perform in this venue that couldn't be any more spectacular. To be surrounded by visual art is just too much for me almost to bear. So, excuse me. There's such a richness in experiencing the interconnectedness of the arts and how they serve to enhance one another. And that's sort of my mission. I love to write poetry, I love to read poetry, I love to work with children with poetry, but I love music and I love art, and I think they all enhance one another and they really belong together to me. And I think, Linda, you feel the same way.
Yes.
And that's sort of how we got together. So, this performance is truly a collaboration, and it's quite different from one of my typical poetry readings. In preparing for it, what I did was I gathered together some of my work that I thought had a connection, either musically or art-wise, and then I gave these poems to Linda and let her do the coloring. So she really was a great participant in the literary part of this. She picked out the poems that resonated with her, and then she selected pieces that she thought resonated with them. So I chose to read this poem that I'm going to read because I think it expresses that connection very, very well. Unfortunately, no matter how hard I tried, and I tried very hard, I couldn't get a copy of this Monet painting. And it's called Sunrise. And I did it on my printer at home, and what happened is it came out looking garish, and Monet is anything but garish. So I'm going to describe it a little bit. It's a painting of a harbor scene at sunrise, and there's boats in the foreground, and there's this beautiful orangey, peachy sunrise. And when I have this really strange connection with my senses and the arts and everything. It all mingles for me. And when I saw this painting, I actually felt music. And the painting is called Seeing Sound. The liquid sounds of Clair de Lune are playing Monet, painting pastels, and subtle crescendos of color, as brushstrokes and notes blend with a visual flow of pale blues, greens, and the warm glow of peach, surrounding dark shadows of boats on sun-dappled ripples at dawn, in a softness of sight and sound, where ears and eyes are one. Are ekphrastic, and by that I mean poems either inspired by or about works of art. And I'd like to begin by sharing a poem that I recently wrote about this very gallery, actually. So look around, take it all in. Unfortunately, something in the poem is hiding back here. You'll have to check it out afterwards. Up until about a month ago, I couldn't come into this gallery without feeling I had to leave. There was something very, very intimidating about it to me, and I decided when I found out that this was the gallery where I was going to be reading, that I darn well better come to terms with it. And so I did. I felt I needed to make a connection. But the connection that I made was a very unsettling one. And this is the poem that is the result of that. And the title of the poem is Hieronymus Bosch Redux. Hieronymus Bosch was an artist, a medieval artist. And his paintings were very fantastical about good and evil. And for me, they were terrifyingly surrealistic in content. And they expressed, they showed people in pursuits, in sinful pursuits, let's put it that way. And not in a good way. So I'd apparently been making this connection all along, but I just couldn't put it into words. And I forced myself about a month ago to sit here for 2 hours and just take it in. So I made that unsettling connection, and I'm hoping that no one will leave after this poem, because it is unsettling, and it's not typical of my work at all. But it's real, and it's my connection to the murals of Thomas Hartnett. Hieronymus Bosch Redux. These painted panels have always repelled me, but this time I forced myself to stay in the gallery, closed in, suffocating, surrounded by El Greco-like figures, swirling with pain, and stretched out rubber band bodies and arms reaching into the underbelly, body basic, broken, yet believing. Puffing cigars, pointing rifles, revolvers, fingers, tickling keys, lascivious songs, spirituals, an angel blaring through a megaphone. Above it all, a girl child sitting in the lap of darkness. Pianos, guitars, saxophones, violins celebrating sin. Women in full skirts heading their own separate ways after church. Wild horses unable to be tamed. Children playing adjacent to prostitutes. Black stockings, bared legs and breasts. Mirrors reflecting the essence of death. Surreal, gawking men. A garbage can, burnished brown bodies of Indians dancing, shaking rabbits, stomping feet, white horse against buffalo blackness, as rising clouds of smoke extinguish hope. Rolling dice, hands full of cards, cheating faces, sly eyes, farmers silently sitting in a motionless wagon, head resting heavy on hand, exhausted, evangelists, fire and water, people ignoring cacophony, endless motion, emotion. I see the Roman Empire's last decadent and dying echoes. In the roaring 20s, the Great Depression, the vast, discordant void of today.
I'm going to play 4 movements from the Partita in D minor for unaccompanied violin by Johann Sebastian Bach. I'll begin with the Allemande, which is the first movement. The movements are going to be played kind of out of order, and actually there's going to be a folk melody kind of mixed in with it too. Music serves different roles, one of which can be acting as scenery. I would suggest listening to the following 3 movements of the Partita as a backdrop to the poems surrounding them and the art described in the poems. This is Allemande.
here, I only read poems about the artwork that was in the museum itself, in the collection, but I'm expanding upon that today. The first poem that I'm going to read, however, is actually a painting that's, I think, still around the corner. And the poem is inspired by this painting by Grant Wood. And Grant Wood is the artist who did the iconic painting American Gothic, you know, the pitchfork painting with the farmer and his wife. And this painting is called Sentimental Song. And I've used a bit of poetic license. I don't often do that when I use paintings, but this time I just felt those stupid wine glasses in the front did not befit these big burly guys in the back, so I made them beer mugs, and I had them hoisting them. So basically, I think I have the image. I don't know if you can see it, but afterwards you can definitely take a look at it. And one little tidbit of information about this. When you look at the painting, you might notice some famous faces. I think one of the people in the painting is John Wayne. It was actually done as an ad for a movie that failed. And the poem's name is Imbalanced. Tipsy and tilted in towards each other, sentimental and sloshing in camaraderie, they lift their mugs and sing in celebration of their sorrows. While at home, overtired children run wild, after endlessly waiting for stories and hugs as their daddy's dinners grow cold. And their wives having no time for indulgence are gulping down the loneliness that comes with lukewarm food. Sighing, they wipe their hands on aprons, reach behind to untie knots, hesitate, then doing both halves of a two-person job, holding on to picture books, they trudge upstairs to tuck the little ones in and tell them tales of why their daddies aren't there. Now you'll notice as I go on that I've written several poems about the work of a local Simsbury artist. Ruth, where are you? This is Ruth Jacobson, and she did all these wonderful paintings. And I absolutely love her work, and I'm very moved by it. And thank you for being my muse, Ruth. I've written many, many poems about her artwork. So I decided to use her paintings today. And I used a couple of others, but mostly Ruth's. And we've collaborated before. We did a show together at the Ethel Walker School. And we also did some work together at the Canton Gallery on the Green, and we have some other projects in the works, right, Ruth? Okay. The first, oh, there it is. I don't know if you can see it. Actually, I'm going to hold this one up. This is actually right from my living room wall. So I like her work so much, I even buy it. And the name of the poem is Two Faces. In the market, it takes place in Afghanistan. In the marketplace, I see her eyes staring out flat and wonder what expression hides beneath her burqa. I suspect that the corners of her mouth are weighted down as she holds her girl child, whose empty eyes are already practicing how to survive. The next poem was also inspired by one of Ruth's paintings. She told me a story, but we never quite really talked about the end of the story. So I had this idea that was very different from how she felt about the story behind this. So I don't want anybody to think that the poem really reflects what Ruth is feeling, because it's totally fictional. It's my own interpretation. The details, though, I think are actually pretty realistic, I think. So anyway, it's about this painting, which was a self-portrait. No, it wasn't. Okay. Quiet. There we go. A little excitement, right? So this poem is called Found Out. Forbidden to pursue what she loves, she pulls her secret tools out from inside the closet, where she hides them wrapped in her clothes. An easel, palette, brushes, and paints, all paid for with months and months of hidden loose change. She's instantly lost in textures, tones, and tints, and acrylics. To be certain, there'll be no hint of a lingering scent. Though she's painted her self-portrait with features and hair in bold colors of blue, red, and gold. When she hears the slightest sound, she quivers and furtively glances outside, begins to sink into the blackness of her sweater as the colors drain from her face. In fear, you'll find out that she's finding herself. The next poem is actually about a Vermeer painting. And it's this one. It's a terrible reproduction. And I'll just explain to you that the guy in the front is a soldier, and he's wearing vivid crimson. And there's a young woman in front of him, and she is totally taken with him. I mean, she is like, she's a god with this guy. So the poem's name is Caution. This young woman's face, in its white kerchief and fur-collared frame, is fully engaged in a story being told from across a table. Like her smile, the soft beige gold of her satin bodice glows in the light that flows from the leaded window. The upturned hand and coy curve of her fingers are an open invitation to her world, which is too small for this oversized man in the foreground. There's foreboding in his boastful stance, in the firmness of his ruffled hand on hip, in the jut of his elbow, and the flashy crimson of his clothes. The broad, jaunty black brim of his hat is aimed at a map of a wider world that hangs on the wall behind her, with boundaries clearly drawn that she is unable to see. It's based on another one of Ruth's paintings, this one right here, which is based on a photograph of the poet Grace Paley. The title of the poem is Blazing Glory. This straightforward woman, with her welcoming tangerine smile and wild, wind-blown hair, has an air of confidence and comfort in the skin she's worn long enough to know that with her hands stuffed deep in her pockets and her high-colored, goldly round face, she belongs to this bulky, bright orange blazer. and can hold her own against a background of teal. Hooray for menopause. The next poem is based on this painting, Leather Goose, and I had a lot of fun with the title of this painting, and you'll understand why when you hear the poem. The title is Allure, A-L-L-U-R-E, but it could be 2 words. With her prominent nose, she's not a perfect beauty, but she understands her appeal, makes the most of her wild, long, curly hair and ample cleavage and tiny waist. Flaunting danger, she brazenly tosses herself into a sea of men, and knows that with a quick nod of her head, she'll hook and reel them in for a game of catch and release.